Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's so great to see you guys hopping on and joining me for this really important topic of exploring our Let's Talk English curriculum. I am Lindsay Klein, and I am one of the authors of this wonderful textbook series, and just really excited to be able to talk to you about it today and showcase what it is we are doing, as well as offer you something pretty awesome at the end of this webinar for you taking the time out of your day, out of your planning, out of your grading to come and stop by and listen to our solution for you. So let's hop right into it. I hope that, if people are hopping on a little bit later, they can catch up, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So let's get going with an introduction to this webinar, who I am, who Robotel is, and we'll hop right in. So you are at the Explore Let's Talk English webinar, and our Let's Talk English is a ready-to-use English curriculum, but if you're looking at it more from a supplemental angle, it is 2,500 ready-to-use English activities. And the best part about this, and I think the thing that needs to be talked about over and over, is that you as the teacher right now up against trying to teach outside of the classroom and things kind of being flipped upside down, this is something that you can use, but more importantly, that your students will be able to access and use on any device, at any place or anywhere, at any time. And so for all the efforts that we know that you are doing right now, this is something that can be a way for you to deliver materials to your students and have them actually interacting with the language, which after all is what we want them to be doing. So with that said, who am I? And why am I the one that is giving you this presentation? So from 2004 to 2016, I was a high school German teacher, and I studied obviously the German language, high school pedagogy, but I also was really interested in second language pedagogy. And I did get a license in that K through 12 and really became enthralled in retention of language and language acquisition and all the things that make up what we do as a teacher. So in 2012, I started searching for a solution to help my students focus on the more active part of the language. I think a lot of us as language teachers were up against preparing students for something, whether it's a test or a certification or a study abroad program for somewhere in the world. We often are preparing them more for something written, and that oral proficiency part of it kind of goes to the wayside, when in the end, what is the outcome that we're looking for? We want our students to be able to communicate and speak in another language and use the active part of the language, whether that's speaking or writing. But I was really good at the writing aspect and really good at helping my students, do what I thought was good enough speaking. But what it was translating to was they would come back to visit me a couple years later, 4 years later, because as they graduated high school, they would move on and they'd come back and the retention of their language was lacking. It just disappeared, and it made me really sad. So it started making me question the way that we teach, and then made me question what I could possibly do different or bring into my classroom to really help them to amplify their speaking opportunities. Because the average student, so I had average class size of anywhere from 26 to 30 students in a class, sometimes as many as 36 students. And the average student speaks only 1 minute of a foreign language, of the language they're trying to learn, a day. 1 minute is not going to translate to becoming fluent in something. So I knew that I had to really figure out a way to allow them to engage in the target language as much as possible. And so in 2014, it took a couple years of me researching. I wrote a grant with one of my colleagues and had the Smart Class Plus platform usable and ready to be used by my students in my classroom. And we had a cart that we would wheel with different devices on it instead of having an actual lab where it was stationary. And that was the biggest thing for me coming and deciding upon Robotel's Smart Class Hub, was because of the fact that I could use it in anywhere and on any device. And so it became this mobile language lab, so to speak. And I am so ecstatic that the grant was approved, and I'm so excited that I started using it, because it led me to what I'm doing now, trying to empower teachers to use technology in a way that's really going to transform their teaching and their students' learning in the way that it did for me and my students. So in 2016, I did join the Robotel team as a trainer to really help teachers look at the ins and outs of this platform, understand how to put their curriculum in here. And with that, then we also heard a lot of teachers saying what we know we all lack. We lack time. And so a lot of teachers were saying they loved our platform, but they didn't feel they had a lot of time to be putting everything that they do into our platform. So we have great 20 to use, easy to use templates already there for you to put your curriculum in. But because of the feedback we were getting, I was then tasked with initiating a content project for our Let's Talk English. So we started with English first, and we have developed this entire curriculum for teachers of English by teachers. And we're really, really excited to be able to roll this out to you and showcase it today. So as you can see here, I have a couple pictures. This is a class of mine, and these are students that I took to Germany, and loved taking my students to Germany and immersing them in the language, because I feel it's such an amazing way for them to learn exponentially the language. And then, of course, at the center is my family, and my husband Fabian is from Germany, and we are raising our kids bilingually. So it's something that's very important to us. Language learning is not just a career or an occupation. It's something that we live and breathe. And I think you're going to see that throughout our entire company. We have been around since 1984. So I think this is a very important fact, because right now, as teachers are trying to sift through all of the different technological aspects, all the different platforms and apps that you can be using for you and for your students, it's important to note that this wasn't just an idea that we dreamed up in the past month. This has been something that we have been making, perfecting, implementing, using, and people all around the world are using it. And so that should be comforting for those of you that landed here, because you aren't in this alone. We have a company that has been built on this tool and us serving teachers like you. So we are in over 89 countries around the world with over 10,000 installations. So, with 36 years in our underneath our belt, this means that we've been around this industry. We know teachers, we know students, we know what it takes to teach using technology. And we have a team of teachers who really help drive that technological development too, where we know, you're going to hear me use the word time quite a bit, because it was the one thing I wish I had more of, and never, of course, can get more than 24 hours in a day. And it really helped me free up more time. And so that is what we want to do when we are developing our programs and showing you all this stuff. Our goal is to develop a tool that is going to give you more time, that is going to, allow your students more time in the language, and you more time to actually, grade things that need your eyes on it. Or, year after year, these activities are there. So you're going to have more time, because you won't have to recreate them over and over, or flip through binders trying to find something to print. It's just here and assignable at a click of a button. So another time saver, obviously, is the fact that we've created all these English activities for you. So I can't wait to show you that. But our entire purpose. Oh, and I did forget one important part. We speak 22 languages as a company. So we don't just talk the talk. We really walk the walk, and speaking another language, learning other languages. It's something we value, and it's something we believe in so much that we want to offer a solution to teachers and to students that really is going to help along that journey of learning a second language, or third language, or fourth language. Many people in our company speak many languages. So what is this purpose, and what are we going to be able to offer? We believe that cloud-based language teaching allows the language learning process to go beyond the classroom. What we're seeing right now is people are having to do that. Our traditional classroom, as we know it, doesn't function within the four walls. And we don't know what the next few months are going to look like, the next year. But regardless of what happens, your efforts now using this platform won't be for nothing, because regardless if you're in a classroom or outside of the classroom, this is a solution for everyone. I used this in my classroom, and then I would assign homework assignments for my students. Instead of a workbook where they just have to write the answers, I would assign activities where they would have to tell me what they ate for dinner, or tell me what they're going to do on the weekend. And they'd use their active speaking language instead of just writing it down in a notebook. Because after all, when they communicate, they're not going to have a conversation where they can write down their thoughts and then articulate them in the spoken language. So getting them comfortable being uncomfortable and speaking on the spot is really what it's all about, and them having that time to practice. And we know that this platform allows students to speak more, to comprehend at their own pace. And probably my favorite aspect of all is that they can reflect and take ownership for their language learning. Because if they can hit the play button and listen to what they said and listen if they conjugated the verb incorrectly, or if they, their word order was off, or if they used a wrong word, or if they accidentally used their native language while they were talking, they are going to grow exponentially because they are reflecting on it on their own. Instead of just waiting for you to correct them, they can listen to it and then re-record and try to do a better job. So the growth that I saw in my students was unbelievable because of these aspects. They got time to actually practice. They could comprehend at their own pace, and then they could go back and reflect and do it again if they wanted to. It's the magic formula. I really believe that. So what do we have to offer? What I will be showcasing are these two aspects. So the Smart Class Hub is our digital language teaching platform that has 20 activity templates that you can put your own curriculum into. It can use any language, and it's the program that houses everything. So it becomes your activity or exercise media library, so to speak. Now, because we've already created content for you, this is where you would be working within, and you'd have access to the activities. What we developed then was the Smart Class content, and these are the actual activities that we added into the Smart Class Hub for English right now. And it has 2,500 activities, like I said, but I saved this fun fact because it is the best part about our curriculum. It saves you time. How? Well, one, you don't have to create the activities, but two, 50% of them are auto-graded by our system. So that means less things that your eyes and ears need to be on to give feedback. And two, it means that your students are going to get immediate feedback on 50% of their activities, where they can just go and open it again and see what they got wrong right away to reflect on, their mistakes and how to do better. The last product that we have is the Smart Class Live. So this is more of a synchronous way of learning versus our asynchronous way of learning. And a lot of you are trying to do a lot with synchronous right now with, whether it's a Zoom or some other video type platform where all your students are showing up at once. That is really hard to be on live all the time and try to make sure that every student is speaking. So right now in this environment, this asynchronous way of learning has been tremendous and helped so many teachers out, where they can plan and push out activities to be assigned to their students at the clicks of buttons, and then they don't have to be on for a couple hours a day with their students, when really 30 students behind a screen, we all know the attention span of students. I mean, it can't last more than 7 minutes for some, 15 minutes for others. But this live is something that we do have to offer for those of you that are looking for synchronous learning when you're back inside your classroom. So it's not something you can have now. It needs to be when everybody is in one environment together, and you can pair up your students and have them talk and have conversations with them. It is a really great program, but again, you'll have to wait until you're back in the classroom to use that one. So a little bit more about our English curriculum before I give you a sneak peek to it all. It is a complete ESL, EFL English curriculum. It is based on the Common European Framework Proficiency Standards. So that means we have all the way right now from A1 to B2. That's like level 1 through level 4. We're working on some of those more advanced levels as well, so stay tuned. But in every single level, we work on all the skill sets of learning a language. We do the reading, the writing, the listening, the speaking, and we make sure that we really do a good job focusing on that speaking, because we know a lot of times that's where resources or curriculums lack. So we've really amped up that because our platform allows it. And we have a bunch of different types of speaking activities that you'll love. We have broken it down into vocab topics with grammar aspects within each thematic unit chapter. Again, it's all compounded 2,500 activities. And the best part is, if you notice your students are struggling with something, and you'd like to give them a follow-up activity to practice more of that, you can go and use any of our 20 easy-to-use templates to create another activity to get them to work on something. So let's say they're struggling with the pronunciation of past tense participles. You could go in and create an activity where you just make all sorts of sentences that they have to pronounce using the past tense. So really great for differentiation, really great for you to be using these extra interventions where, you don't just have to use what we have. You can also build your own things in and make it the absolute most complete curriculum you've ever had. All right, so the time you've all been waiting for, the sneak peek of what it actually looks like and how you would go about using this in your classroom. So for showing up to this webinar, at the end, we will show you how you can have access to all 2,500 activities for free until the end of June. We know that right now it's really hard for a teacher to go and try to create all these activities and recreate their wheel of curriculum and content that you've probably been used to teaching, at least a couple years or year after year, maybe 20, maybe 30. So to reinvent all of that and try to make it be where you can teach online, it's very difficult. So we have all this created for you. So I'm going to show you how you would go about using it. So give me 1 second to share my screen. And I'm going to show you what it is that we have. So when you have free access to our Smart Class Hub, which you all should have already, come through some of the other webinars, and you should have already downloaded our Smart Class Hub. On that free access or free trial page, you would scroll down and you're going to see every single one of our books there for you to download. So I'm going to start with the B2 because as you had free access, you should have already seen one chapter hanging out there for you of one of our B2 chapter 3 that you could be working with if you wanted to. But because you were here today, we will give you all access to all of the activities. So if you were teaching B2, let's say, so you were like a level 4 or upper intermediate, whatever you call it, this would be the book that you'd be using. So the first thing that you would want to do is you'd want to go and you could find the table of contents, and it tells you, okay, here are the breakdowns of the chapter, just titles and what the page numbers are. I really like the next one where we took the time to go down and break it down further for you so you really can see the layout. Because if you are using this as a supplemental aspect in your classroom, in which many of you probably are now since it's at the tail end, you normally start new curriculums at the beginning. But if you're using this as supplemental, you could go in and you could look at the contents, you could look at the chapters, and you could say, oh, well, right now we're working with travel. So, maybe I'm going to start here in chapter 3. Well, let's take a look at, okay, here's the vocab breakdown. Oh, sightseeing and weather, that would be good. Taking a trip, yeah, that would probably fit in. Then you could even look at the grammar. So if it wasn't necessarily that you're working in a thematic-based unit, that you do more of like grammar-based units, you could go and say, all right, well, I'm working with adjectives. What kind of adjectives? Gradable versus non-gradable. So you could go and you could scroll until you found that. Okay, so, if it was working with adverbs instead, it would be common and viewpoint adverbs. So you'd go look at chapter 4, section 3. So every chapter is broken down into 3 sections, where you have a big vocab list, which is like 80 or 90 words, and then it's broken down into 3 sections so that it's even a little bit more manageable for the student to work with, like 30 words, work with some new grammar, always 2 new grammar points, and then they move on to the next section where they get 30 more words and then 2 more grammar points that they're going to work on. So again, they would end up having 6 new grammar points that they've learned by doing 1 chapter in our book. So again, I'm going to pretend that I was working on travel, and I'm going to start right away, and we're going to talk about vacation. I'm going to dream about vacations with my students right now. And I just, I have some great projects that I want them to do, and I already have grammar that I like. So I really am only going to pull out the vocab, and I want my students to do a lot of speaking activities, and that's all I want from this Let's Talk English. Okay, so I'm pretending I'm this teacher who's going to do that. So then the other thing you would do is on our page, we are going to have for you a link to this activity index. So instead of making you scroll through and try to get to chapter 3 and then try to figure out which activities you actually want to use. We made an activity index so that you don't have to read every single activity and try to understand it here. We've just made a snapshot of the activity. So what the activity number is, what section it's in, what kind of activity type it is, if it's auto-graded, the domain. So is it a speak? Is it a listen? Is it a read? Is it a combination of them all? When we've done this so that you can easily pick out and pick and choose the ones that you want to be using. So with that said, let me just quickly show you what a breakdown of our chapter would look like for you. And then I'll go in and I'll pick out some activities and I'll show you our hub. So each chapter is broken down into the sections. And then when we're in, you can always see up here where you are. So I'm in vocabulary section 1. Look at these first 5 activities. We have an open recording. We have a pronunciation where it's like a flashcard capability, a text match, an open text, a fill in the blank. So right off the bat, they're speaking and pronouncing those vocab words, so you don't have to sit there and pronounce them all over and over. They can come back to this and practice this. Then you have text match so that they're matching and understanding what the word means, where they're writing the words so they can get them in their brains, get the spellings correct. And then we've got dictation right up front. And then we go in and we do more comprehension activities. So you see a sentence jumble, another fill in the blank. And it just, there's just so much variety of the activities that your students aren't going to get bored. They're going to be engaged, and then you can quiz them, or give formative assessment. Give yourself some information as to how they're doing just by there being so many different types of activities. Their comprehension skyrockets, their speaking skyrockets, because we really have developed a lot of activities around each topic. Then it goes into a grammar. We've got these great grammar charts that we've developed. So if you struggle teaching grammar, you can use ours. They will really help. And then it go into all these different grammar activities. And then it will come to the second grammar point. And it's another great break it down chart. And then it will go into more activities. And then it goes into conversation. Okay, and we make the students have a conversation. You can still do that. You can still assign these and make the kids call each other or use some sort of messenger system where they talk. And then oftentimes we make the student then report on what it is they talked about, so they did the activity. And then it goes into a reading, and then reading comprehension questions. And a lot of teachers are helping their students try to get some sort of certification or pass some sort of test in order to study abroad or go to university. And so we've really developed these comprehension activities to mimic what those test activities would look like and expect of them. And then it goes into another section, and it just repeats. And it does that for all 3 sections. And I'm going to show you at the beginning of the chapter, kind of just that breakdown so you can see the flow. So we go vocab, grammar, conversation, reading. And then we go back up again, vocab, grammar, conversation, reading for section 2, go through it one more time. And then we get into this Let's Talk. And Let's Talk is an authentic video and authentic interviews of students speaking American English and them interacting with a topic within this thematic unit, so that it's not scripted. They might not always get the best pronunciation or grammar. You might get some slang, but it really helps prepare students for listening to authentic language. And then we go into review and assessment. So if you're struggling to try to assess students right now, I can't even imagine what that looks like on your end of the teacher if you didn't have something like this. I was so spoiled my last couple of years of being able to have this. I could do oral proficiency tests so easily. Put it in here and all my students would be taking it at once. Whereas before I'd step out in the hallway or hide in a corner with one student and them try not to get distracted by everyone else and have enough work for everyone else to do, so that I could individually have time one-on-one with each student to do an oral proficiency test for their chapter test. Whereas now it's like they can just all do it at once. It saves so much time, so much headache. And then we always give learning objectives. So I just wanted you to kind of see it from this standpoint too, but I think you had to see it within the chapter to really understand how this breakdown makes sense. With the review and assessment, as I'm scrolling to find my next place, it's important to know that with our review and assessment, we made sure that they mirror each other, because especially right now, if you don't have your students there to be able to ask and for you to answer questions, while they're taking their assessment or while they're doing the review to prepare for their assessment, they might not know what the expectations are or might not be fully prepared for their assessment. So our assessment directly mirrors the review. So it's not using the same, words or same listenings, but what it does is if we did a multiple choice for listening 1, we did the same activity with the same type of questions for the assessment. So they really go in prepared, and then you therefore can really analyze how their language ability is doing, not based on, did they have questions that just weren't answered, or, they didn't really know what was expected of them. They will fully be prepared for that assessment because it mirrors the review. But again, all the activities are changed up as far as, a different conversation or different content, because we obviously don't want to make it too easy for them. We really want to test they know what they're doing. So then Let's Talk would look like this, where we have the video script for you. We have the comprehension questions. Then we go into some interviews, some interview comprehension questions. And then we go into the review and assessment. And we like to give a self-assessment here so the student can reflect on how they're doing with the assessment. And then it goes listening 1, 2. We always have 2 listening activities, 1 or 2 grammar activities, a reading, a writing, and then always 2 speaking. So again, this is for the review, and then the assessment looks the exact same way so that you're testing them on every aspect of the language for their assessment. So you really get all of the skill sets of language learning for this assessment. And then we threw it in a couple projects at the beginning of the assessment in case any of you prefer project-based learning. So we give you a couple ideas, we give you some rubrics that you can use, and then we do usually for these upper levels make it a debate that the students have to do, because we know that's important for them to be able to do. So, and then it just goes into the assessment. So that's enough of that. What I'm going to do is show you how you would go about using this quickly. I got to turn off this filter so that if you really wanted to use this as a supplemental resource, how would you go about doing that? So you could go through and scroll through the book like I just did and pick out each activity and then go in the hub and assign them. Or you could take it one step further to make it a little bit quicker for you. I told you that I'm a teacher, that I'm going to just pull out all the speaking activities. So what you would do, we have this as a Google form or a Google spreadsheet, or we have as an Excel spreadsheet that you can download as well. So this is just in the Google format, but you would just look for in Excel, you click on the column that you would like to filter things out in. And then you would click on this filter, and the same thing in Microsoft Excel. And then once this filter kind of pops up here, this is what you click on, and then you give it more information. So in this column, all of these different aspects show up. So I'm going to clear it, and I only want to focus on my speaking. So all my speaking ones came up, so I'm going to check all of these. And so as you can see right now, it goes in chronological order. All of the numbers are here of every activity, but I want to filter out and only have the speaking activities. Okay, so now what has happened is only my speaking activities are here. So I could easily open up the lab in my hub, and I could go and assign point 1, point 2, point 9, point 15, and I could just assign every speaking activity from this chapter. It'll quickly show you that so that it could make your life a little bit easier as you're trying to use our system. So speaking of our system, let's hop to it. Let's get in there and show you how you would do this. So I already put my information in. Let's see if it likes me today. Always memorizing all those usernames and passwords. I tell you, that was one of the major reasons I was excited about this platform and bringing it into my classroom, was because I was really excited when finally I had something that could do everything I wanted. And then it was all in one place at easy clicks of buttons, very, very organized, because I love organization. Otherwise, I don't know where to find anything. So when you log in, this is what you would see. If you had more classes, you would obviously have more of these tokens. But when you first download our Smart Class Hub, this is the only class you would have. And this is a sneak peek into our B2 Chapter 3. And that's what I'm going to work with. But let's say that you wanted to go and download all of our materials. You're going to have to go and create a brand new class. And we've got a video on our trial page that will show you how to do that. But it's so easy at the click of a button to add new classes. You'd create it, and it would be right next to it in a minute. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to pretend that I'm using B2 Chapter 3. It's that travel chapter that I told you about. And all the activities are done for me, so I don't need to create activities at all. I'm going to go organize and assign work. So pretend you have a class tomorrow, and you're just downloading this and you want to go and use this. You would have had to go in and add some of your students, of course. You'd have to make sure that they have the app on their end, but then literally at the click of a button, you could have activities assigned to them. So let me just remind you which activities I want to be using. So I'm going to pull this over, and I am going to mimic exactly what this wants me to do. So I am in the Chapter 3, Section 1 vocabulary. So I would open it up, and I'm going to keep in the point 1, the point 2s, and then, okay, I don't need the point 3. So what you would do, I do not recommend deleting anything because you might want to go back to it, especially these orange question mark ones. These are the ones that are graded for you. So do not delete those. All that you want to do is pull it out of the folder, because when you go to assign, you're going to assign everything that's in the folder. So if you don't want your student eyes to be on it, just take them out. Okay, so I took out the point 3s. I'm going to take out this one. And then you can decide, oh, it's a cultural note. I might want to keep that in. I'm going to keep going. And then the point 9. Okay, great. So if I took this one out, let's just say, look at the activities. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 speaking activities that you could assign to your student very easily. Again, there's no harm in leaving these in because the system grades it for you. But then you would just have to know the green ones are audio. The purple ones are another activity that's graded. This is the pronunciation activity. The easiest thing for your students to do and get immediate feedback to work on their pronunciation, and one that your eyes and ears don't have to be on. So these are some of my favorites. And then of course, anything with that orange is an auto-graded one. So at the click of a button, I could go and I could assign this to my students. And I would change it to available. And what it's doing now is it's taking everything in this folder, all these contents, and it's pushing it out to communicate so that when the students open up their app, any student that's in my class will have access to all of these activities. And then the student would click on it. And let me just show you one. And you know what? I'm going to show you one that was already done. I was getting ahead of myself. I went and had some students already create these or interact with these. So I'll show you here instead of bothering to show you one that's not done. Okay. So when your students complete them, what would you do then? How would you actually grade them and give them feedback? So you saw how easy it was for me to assign it to my students. So now this was when I assigned last night and my students worked on it. Now I'm going to go and I'll show you what it would look like to review what they've done. Okay, and we don't need this anymore, so I'm going to make this bigger so you can see this a little bit better. So this was an open recording, and it tells you what type of an activity it is here. And then what I like is you can click through the students by doing this, or you can go and you can select student. And this is a great aspect right now because as your students are away from the classroom, you don't necessarily know who's going to be working on what when. So if you have a little pocket of time, you could go in and you could grade whatever's done. So I don't have to wait for Hannah and Danny to finish this. It's not due till midnight, so it's not late or anything, but I just have some time, so I'm going to go in and grade them. You know that they're done when they have a dot next to them. If this was an automatically graded activity, which you'll see me go into one of those, it would already have the grade next to it as well. So I'm going to pick Lindsay Klein. I've heard she's a phenomenal student. And I would go in and I would just hit play to hear what it is that she did. The instructions were say as much as possible about these section 2 images, what's happened, what is happening, what will happen. And I'll hit play. My microphone might be hard to hear since webinar is using it. Okay, so hopefully you heard a little bit there, but if at any point I need to stop, I could stop and give some feedback, and I could quickly, I could give written feedback, or I could give oral feedback. So I could quick stop and say, oh, Lindsay, right away at second 10, watch your pronunciation. I heard a TH, you did the Z sound instead of the. Really watch that. I could hit stop. I could hit keep playing. Okay, and then I would keep going, and then I could continue recording. Overall, great job, Lindsay. You told me what happened, what is happening, what will happen. You used all sorts of different tenses and really made a great story for this family. Keep up the good work. I could hit stop, and then I would hit save. And like that, I have graded this activity for my student, and I can move on to the next one. And here's Fabian Klein's recording. So you might not be able to hear it again. I'll do my best. Okay, so you heard a little bit about what he was saying, but just nice and easy. You can see how long the student spoke as well, and then you could give a grade. So I could give him a written grade. Obviously, if I was teaching, I would listen to the whole thing, and I might give him a B and say, you hesitated a bit with the new vocabulary. Make sure to practice that a little bit first. And then I could just save it here. And if I wanted to, I could record something and, you know, if I didn't like the recording, I could be done with it, or I could record something and then save it for him. Okay. If I wanted to go back and select a new student, just watch what happens. You saw me give a written letter grade, so now his is showing up. So if I would have done that for Lindsay and not just a oral grade, you would have seen that come up there as well. Okay. So this is great because then when you have a grade book that you're using, you would easily just look at the name, and then all of the grades are right here in a snapshot for you. Okay, so that is what it would look like for an open recording. And I love doing open recordings with images. Students, they can say so much about it. So we've got one in every single section for your students to interact with. Next, I'll showcase a pronunciation. This is such a great activity. Because again, this is one that our system grades for you and grades for the students so they can have immediate feedback. So it's a pronunciation activity. And we made it more into like the flashcard capability. So they're going to see an image that goes with the word. They're going to see a sentence that goes with the word. And I know we're having a little bit of trouble with Wi-Fi here today. Everybody is online. So let me try to open that one again. And if it doesn't work, we'll just have to move on to the next one. All right, so something is not happy here with our Wi-Fi. I apologize. I tried to put my buffer on, and it just does not seem to be helping our situation here at the office today. So let me quickly go back in. And again, as teachers, we are constantly having to be flexible with things. You know, think back to your classroom. You'd have a student that came unprepared, and you have to, you know, be flexible with what's happening. So let me just reopen this. Oh yeah, I was saying I was offline. So my Wi-Fi just disconnected. Hopefully you guys are still with me. That would be awful. And hopefully our Robotel people are taking good care of you. We've got a great support team that is there answering your questions, as you probably know by now. So please ask those questions away. We love to be able to support you. So let's go in. We're going to try this again. I think I have a little bit stronger Wi-Fi signal. So here we go. All right. So this is what it would look like for the student when they are working with a pronunciation flashcard one. So I've put in these images to go with the word so they could actually try to understand the word. Okay. And then all that the student would do is they would try to say these sentences. The artificial intelligence would grade them on how well it was able to understand what they said, and then it would give them a score. So as you can see, Fabian did a great job here. As a non-native to get 99%, fantastic. So then I would just go in as the teacher and I would look at the sentences that he did. And I love it from a student point of view, because then if they aren't satisfied, let's say they got an 80% is what they got graded, they can click and try it again. So this really helped my students try to mimic correct pronunciation, which, you know, is difficult when you are having to sit and do that over and over with them. You never really know which of the students are sounding perfect because they're repeating it in class. And so this is an easy way for your students to get feedback and reflection on their pronunciation without you having to do anything. All right, so I'm just trying to see which one he got off. The flight was smooth, but we had a rough, lending. It sounded to them, it sounded like he said lending. So the person wouldn't have understood what he was trying to say. So grade, 99% is what it grades. And I could say, great job here, or whatever it is. And then if I wanted to, I could say, I am super impressed that you got a 99% on this activity. There were some long sentences and some hard words. Well done. And I could just save it. And then I could move on to the next student if I knew which direction I was moving. And I could give a grade. Lindsay got a 96%. So I could, quick give her some feedback on number 4. I could give her oral feedback on number 4 and mimic the sound to really try to help her, or, just give some written feedback and say, still a great score. Because I know that Lindsay tries to do everything 100%. And then you would go here and you would see, the percentages if you wanted to write them in your grade book. All right, and one last activity. We are almost done. I just want to show you, I'm just showing you the versatility of what our system can do and what type of activities we have for you. Obviously, you saw as I was scrolling through the book, there were so many different types of activities. This is one of my absolute favorite activities. And Lindsay and Fabi, they were the ones that got to it in time. Oops, and I closed it. That happens sometimes. I get a little click happy. So I'll go back in. But again, so if I have a pocket of time, I could click on every single activity, grade the ones that are done, and then just come back into them. And I'd see the grades next to the ones I have done. I'd see just a white dot next to the ones that are waiting to be graded. All right, so I'll listen to Lindsay's. This is a segmented recording. And what I love about a segmented recording is that you can do a listen and repeat, you can do listen and respond, and your students have to, work on comprehension and then giving either the repetition or responding. So let's see if you can hear this. And another great feature, you can hit just the green play button and not have to listen to all of the recording, which if you have to listen to a recording 30 times, I don't know about you, but I don't have time for that, right? So just listen to the student, because you know the questions that they asked. And if you forgot, you could listen to it once so to jog your memory about what questions were being answered or asked. And then even here, you could do this one where it would play that question and then play their answer. So I'm just going to play this. Hopefully you heard that, but just so many different things that our system can do. And then if you see these check marks, if they get through and answer their questions and they're not satisfied, they can select none of them and just pick one, and it will allow them to re-record that one. So again, that reflection aspect and what the students can control and really work on and try to do better at. What teacher doesn't want that? I mean, obviously on a test, you would probably work with a continuous recording. It's another activity that we have. If you don't want them trying over and over, you can also put a time capability on these. So lots of great things. But then I could grade it as I normally would, but I just wanted to show you what it kind of looked like. One last thing to bring up about using this platform in general. I'm going to go to one that's not assigned and quick show you this. So let's say that you're not sure if you want to assign this activity, or you wanted to, even look at some of the other activities that were created. you could go in and you can make changes. So if you didn't like this, like use at least 10 adjective. If you didn't like that as being the instructions, and actually those instructions were ones that I accidentally added. But if you went and, wanted match the correct translation, so that's over here, you can add extra ones. That's what I was trying to showcase here. And I guess it didn't get deleted when I did it the last time. But I could even, say, also try saying these words. Okay, so you could give some extra instructions. You could, if you didn't like one of our vocab words, you could take it out. So if you don't care that they know the word cancellation policy, don't do it. You can go in and edit our activities, not the media file coming in, but on the back end, you can edit what the student either has to do or what the instructions say. So like with any writings or readings, if you're working on a specific grammar concept, you could go and add something in. Or if they're going to struggle with, at the lower levels, understanding our English instructions that we've put here, you could write and give them a little bit of help in your language over here. So again, if you didn't like one of these sentences, you could literally delete it and you wouldn't have to, your students wouldn't have to do it. They'd be confused because it's an audio and they'd be like, well, where's that sentence? But just so that you know, it is editable, which I think is very important, because I know that sometimes when my textbook had something, I thought, my kids don't really need to do this one. So if you don't want them to do the activity, pull it out. If you don't like that answer or that question, change it. So instead of having all this stuff laying out here, if you are using it in a supplemental way, I would suggest at the bottom making like an unused folder, and you literally could just pull them over and then put them in. So that is about it as far as the platform goes. You can edit everything. Obviously, you can add new folders, you can delete things, you can collapse things so that it's not, not overwhelming for you. And then when you're done with them and you didn't want your students to see them anymore and they had a chance to do them all, you could hit unavailable, and then this wouldn't muddy up your students' app. And then you could just assign the next one so that they don't get confused as to which ones are assigned and it doesn't get overwhelming to them. You would still have access to grade everything here. It's just they wouldn't see it on their side anymore. And then there's another button where you can unassign it completely. And that's how you would keep your materials year after year, but you would delete all of your student resources. So be careful if you're clicking this. It does give you a warning, but I want to give you that extra warning too, from teacher to teacher. It's hard when you lose stuff. So that concludes our little showcase and presentation there. I hope that you found it inspiring. I hope you found it motivating, because I know that when I first found this and had, my first little tutorial on it, I looked at it and thought about all the different activities I was going to make, all the different things my students were going to be able to do and accomplish, and I really got excited. So if you are excited, know that we are too. I mean, we believe that this is the one-stop solution for everything for a language teacher and a language student. It's everything in one place. It makes it an easy solution for teachers and students alike, especially in the current situation where we're outside of the classrooms. But even when you're back in the classroom, you don't have to ditch this software, this platform. It is something that you'll be able to use inside the classroom and then even use outside of the classroom for homework for your students. It improves accountability for all activities. Students can't hide behind it. They have to do them. They're going to get a grade on a lot of them if you have the graded activities. Auto-graded activities of 9 of them. Even that pronunciation one that's graded, it was massive for my students' pronunciation. It allows more time for students to speak. I think this could be the only thing on here, and that would be a good enough slide, because the more time that our students spend speaking and using the active language, the better, right? So it's just, nothing can compete with that. It increases their comprehension, they take ownership, they reflect, and all of your media files, again, year after year after year in one organized place. It's priceless. So if you have not done so already and you somehow found yourself here without listening to any of our other webinars, know that we're offering this completely free until the end of June, because we really want to support you as teachers and support your students while you're trying to find a solution that can help right now. But We're hoping that you fall in love with it the way that we did, and we hope that it transforms your teaching. You get excited about it, and that you can look into maybe bring this in to be something you actually use and develop for your classrooms. Everything you do now will still be there. And it's a beautiful concept, and it's something that you can take pride in, knowing also it's not something that is incredibly expensive. This costs less than my student notebook costed for my students, and I can do so much more with it. So, and if you care about the environment, it's paperless, so lots of great things. But if you haven't done so, go to our free access. We have so many video tutorials to walk you through how to use it. We have these webinars for you. So you go to roboteltrial.com. How you log in there is how you're going to log in once you actually install the Smart Class Hub. And we have a couple other resources that you really need to know about. This isn't one of those things where you hop on this webinar, it sounds like a great idea, you download it, and then you don't know how to use it. We've given you so many resources on that trial page, but beyond that, we're here to support you. So people that you see in this picture, they are going to be on live support sessions, so that if you get stuck at trying to download and install your application or install the Smart Class Hub, there's a tech support live so that you can go and log on at the specific time, and they're there to help you. If you can't be on that time, then just send the technical support a question, and they'll get right back to you. Same thing if it's educational, you want to know how to use something, how to make something. We have the educational support email. We have this great FAQ area, or we have a couple live supports just for you to be asking questions on how to create content or how to use Let's Talk English. We believe showing up live is important because you may have a question that is hard to ask over email, and we want to be able to walk you through it and show you so that you can also be doing it on your computer at that time. This company is here for you. This is not something that we look as only being a short-term solution. It really is something that could transform what it is that you do and how your students learn a language. So we're excited to be able to offer you this completely for free. And now the super exciting part of it is that you get to have all 2,500 activities for free until the end of June to play around with, to assign, to use, to edit, to make your own. And see if you love it. See if it makes life a little bit easier for you. See if it makes activities a little more enjoyable for your students. And we have an offer. If our person hasn't put it in chat yet, I can't see the chat from here. I have to click out of my presentation. So if our Robotel team should have by now put up that offer for you to know and to follow a link that gives you to a video that will show you how to get access to all 2,500 activities at a few clicks of a button so you can start assigning them to your students. I'm so thankful that you were here. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. It was close to an hour. I know that time is precious. Take care, be safe, and we hope to see you using Smart Class Hub.